So, ever since I was little, I wanted to be just like my dad. I would follow him around and do whatever projects he was working on, whether it was on the car or around the house, fixing things. And as I grew older, I realized that my dad, he was an engineer, so I should become an engineer as well. Um, he worked for the Department of Energy and did research and development. And so I just figured, that would be something fun to do as well. So when I was in high school, I started looking into different schools that I should attend and different occupations. And I finally settled on becoming a nuclear engineer. Well, the other thing that my dad did was he served other people. He loved to just visit and see what people needed and would take care of whatever it was. I remember going with him to a little old lady's house and helping her replace the filter on her HVAC system. We would go next door and shovel the driveway of our elderly neighbor who had a hard time getting out. I grew up in Chicago, so there's a lot of snow, and so we would do that every time it snowed. The other thing that my dad did was he served a mission for our church, and he went to the Philippines, and so I thought that would be great to be able to travel and see someplace new and live there for a couple of years and help people, just like my dad. When I submitted my paperwork to go on my mission, I was surprised to find out I was going to Alaska. It was what we call stateside, right? It wasn't foreign. And so I was a little disappointed at that, but I decided to go. While I was in Alaska, I met a lot of different people, and I quickly realized that I loved people. I wanted to work with people. That's just something that became very apparent as I met with a lot of different backgrounds, different cultures that were in Alaska. Not only the native people, but there are a lot of Pacific Islanders that live up there, a lot of people from South America and Central America who lived up there. And I realized, wow, people are great and interesting and fascinating, and I wanted to do something that allowed me to interact with people from various backgrounds a little bit more. When I moved to Delta Junction, Alaska, the friend that I was there with, that I was doing missionary work with, we were kind of an adventurous group, and the two of us, we were walking down a lane, and we saw this random path go through the forest. Now, let me tell you a little bit about Alaska. In Alaska, we would always joke that most Alaskans had at least two of three things: dogs, guns, and dead things hanging on the wall. And so Alaska is kind of an interesting thing. That's just what you would get used to. But the fact that 2 out of 3 homes always had guns, that kind of made things interesting if you were just going to randomly go up and knock on a door. In fact, one of the homes that I saw, they had a sign that said, "Trespassers will be shot, survivors will be shot again." So there was always a little danger involved when we were out knocking on doors. And but we saw this path that wasn't there a month before, and so we're like, where does this path go? It wasn't here before, let's go investigate. So we walked down the path, and it opened up into a clearing. And in this clearing was a brand new cabin. You could tell from the smell, you could smell wood, you could tell from the layout of the land that it had recently been built. And we're like, wow, where did this cabin come from? And so we went up, and again, we hesitated because Alaska, but we decided, okay, let's knock on this door. And we knocked on the door, and we heard a quiet voice say, "Come in." Again, we hesitated. Okay, this is Alaska. There could be someone behind there with a big dog or a gun or something, but we didn't hear any dogs. And so we hesitated, and then we heard again, "Come in." So finally, we opened up that door and slowly peeked in, and what we saw in the middle of the room was a hospital bed with a frail old man sitting in the middle of it with a bunch of ferrets running around the room. We were surprised that this man, 6 months prior to this, he told us that he had been diagnosed with end-stage pancreatic cancer, and he decided that he was going to build his own cabin and die alone in the middle of the forest. We were shocked and surprised to hear this story, and we introduced ourselves and said, "Hey, can we come visit you?" And he said, "Sure." So every day we would come and visit this man. We would bring food, we would bring in new firewood and help stoke his little Benjamin Franklin stove in the middle of the cabin. And we would feed his ferrets and just talk with him. And finally one day, this man, he asked, "Why do you guys keep coming back?" And, you know, we gave some sort of silly response like, "Well, who would stoke your fire or who would feed your ferrets?" But after he passed away, I kind of paused and thought about that. Why do I keep coming back? And I realized it was because of my dad. My dad was the type of person who always came back. He loved people. I love people. And so it was then that I realized, you know what? I also like taking care of people who are sick or who need extra help. And so I decided, you know what? Maybe instead of being an engineer, I should become a doctor. But what kind of doctor? There's a lot of different doctors, and they do a lot of different things. Well, if I'm interested in nuclear engineering, maybe I should become an oncologist. But I quickly found that the place for me was in family medicine. So family medicine made sense because you see a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds. You get to take care of a whole bunch of different people and learn to love them, love their stories, and take care of them. And I realized that just a couple years ago, I kind of struggled with that decision going into medicine because I wanted to be like my dad, and my dad wasn't a physician. But I realized that I really have become like my dad because I show up, I keep coming back, and I take care of people, and that's exactly what my dad does. Thank you.